Hello and welcome to another manga spotlight. This is My Girlfriend Gives Me Goosebumps by Shunsuke Ino. I hope I pronounced that right. The best way I can describe this is an adrenaline junkie decides to date a crazy yandere. Yeah. So this is a fairly newish series. I say fairly new because at the time of this recording, there's only been 3 chapters, and this is like a weekly series. So chapter 1 actually came out 14 days ago. I'm assuming by the time this video comes up, there'll probably be another chapter or so. But yeah, let's just read this little premise here. Meet Haruka Kawatsuji, a young boy who miraculously survived the fall from his apartment balcony as a child. Unfortunately, despite his best efforts to find that same thrill in sports and horror movies, he's never quite managed to feel as alive since. However, that may all be about to change in a fateful encounter with one very eccentric girl. Yeah, the series actually starts off with a flashback where we see our main character, Haruka, falling out of an apartment building. And he miraculously survives with very little injuries because he ends up falling into a bunch of bushes, which cushion his fall. And this is like the very first memory that he's ever had. This is whenever he thinks back to like the youngest memory he can think of, it's this moment right here where he falls off the balcony. And the rush that he got from that. Like his heart's racing, his adrenaline is pumping, and this seems to have triggered something in his brain, and he becomes an adrenaline junkie. Unfortunately for him, his mom, who I guess freaked out because of this incident. I mean, who wouldn't? Your child just falls off a balcony and almost dies. Luckily, he comes out like unscathed, but he could have died. So she's freaking out, and she basically forces a promise out of Haruka that you will never climb anything that you can fall off again. And he's like, all right, I promise. And he sticks to that promise. So he never goes on like jungle gyms or anything like that. Anything that has a possibility of him falling from, he doesn't go near. But because of that, he's not able to get that same thrill that he's had. Like he's trying to seek something that can give him like a boost of adrenaline. And so he's tried sports, but sports doesn't really work. He's tried watching a bunch of horror movies. Like he's become addicted to watching horror movies, and it's helped like a teeny tiny bit, but really not that much. So then he's like, okay, I got to go a little bit more extreme. So he starts going to like dangerous places, basically places that are like considered to be haunted, abandoned, stuff like that. And so he creates like a YouTube channel where he just goes around filming himself going to these haunted places and stuff. And he's trying to get that same rush that he had when he was a kid, but it's just not working. And so one day he's in a supposedly haunted building when he hears this argument happening outside. And he looks out and he sees these 2 girls. One of them is Kisaki and the other one is Rinko. And Rinko is berating Kisaki and basically just going off on her, saying like, I can't stand you. You're too clingy. You're annoying. I don't want to ever see you again. Like, we're not friends anymore. Just stop bothering me. Leave me alone. And Kisaki tries to apologize, and Riko doesn't even let her apologize. She's like, just shut up. I don't want to hear your grating voice. And so anyone watching this kind of gets the feeling that Rinko is to see you next Tuesday. He's like, it's like, why is this girl berating this other girl? Like, she seems very sweet. Like, she's just kind of taking it. She's not defending herself, really. She's just kind of sadly getting berated by this girl who she thought was her friend. So Haruka's like, I don't want to, deal with this anymore. Let's put a stop to it. So he has this Halloween mask that he has in his backpack, and he puts it on, and he sneaks up behind Rinko, and she turns around, she sees him, she freaks out, and she runs away. And Kisaki is like, thanking him. She's like, wow, like you went out of your way to help me. Like, that means so much to me. Thank you so much. He's like, don't worry about it. I just got annoyed of seeing her berate you. Don't think too much about it. And Kisaki is trying to introduce herself. She's like, hey, why don't we introduce ourselves? My name is... And Haruko's like, nah, it's okay. Like, I gotta go. And he leaves. And Kisaki just watches sadly as he walks away without even getting his name. As he's walking away, we get like inner dialogue with him. And he's basically explaining to us, the audience, He explains like his backstory about falling, about the rush, about the promise to his mom, and then how nothing he's done has ever given him that same feeling. But for some reason, this girl is starting to give him emotions that he's never felt before. Like there's something off about her. He doesn't know what, but there's some kind of red flags just going off in his head. And that's why he went away from her. And so we cut to a couple years later where he's in high school now. And a new girl gets introduced to the class. And it's Kisaki. And she introduces herself. She notices Haruka and smiles at him. And she goes and takes her seat. And then this other girl comes up and says, all right, I need volunteers for library cleanup. And Haruka starts to raise his hand. And as he's raising his hand, the girl up front is like, all right, it'll be you two. And Haruka turns around and notices that Kisaki has her hand up. He's like, oh, okay. So Haruka and Kisaki start hanging around each other for a while as they're like, cleaning up the library and stuff like that. Kind of just having a little mild chit chat. She once again says, thank you for saving me back then. Wow, isn't it such a coincidence that we end up going to the same school? Not only are we going to the same school, but we're in the same class. Like, that's kind of crazy. And Haruka is just like, yeah. And school ends. He's leaving when Rinko shows up. She's like, hey, I got to talk to you. Meet me over here at the park. It's got to be a private conversation. So Haruka's like, all right, sure. And he goes to the park and he starts talking with Rinko. And Rinko basically tells him, stay away from Kisaki. And Haruka's like, why? And Rinko's like, there's something weird about her. She's crazy. Being near her is going to be dangerous for you. And she explains her story, like her side of things. And she explains how, back years ago, Kisaki was in our class. No one really talked to Kisaki. Like, she seemed kind of lonely. So Rinko decided, hey, she seems kind of sweet. Let's go befriend her. Let's just go talk to her for a bit. And so Rinko goes and talks to her. And that's all she really does. She just talks to her. But then Kisaki starts becoming obsessed with her. Like, we have moments where Kisaki's constantly around Rinko, basically hovering over her. We have a moment where Kisaki shows up to school wearing the same, she has used the same exact shampoo that Rinko had. And so, her hair smells exactly like Rinko's. And Rinko's just kind of like, how did you know what kind of shampoo I use? And Kisaki doesn't really, answer. And then we even have a moment where Rinko is, leaving her house to go to school. And Kisaki's out there. Kisaki's like, hey, why don't we walk home to school together? And Rinko's like, how do you know where I live? I never told you where I lived. And Kisaki's like, we're best friends. Of course I would know where you'd live. So, yeah, just things are getting really crazy. And Rinko's like, you probably don't believe me, but here, I even have proof. And Rinko shows him, a telephone conversation that she had with Kisaki, where it's just a bunch of missed calls from Kisaki. Kisaki constantly saying, pick up, I need to talk to you. Why are you ignoring me? I thought we were best friends. Just going crazy. And so Rinko's like, yeah, so whatever you think is a coincidence, it's not a coincidence. The fact that she picked up the same shampoo that I had, the fact that she knows where I live, that's not a coincidence. The fact that she is here at the same exact school, that she's in your exact class, that you both happen to be doing library duty together, it's not a coincidence. And we even get a flashback where we see as Haruka is raising his hand to volunteer, Kisaki notices and immediately raises her hand. So it wasn't a coincidence that Kisaki got picked. And Rinko's basically telling him she's at your school, she's in your class. I knew she was obsessed with somebody after our breakup. And now after seeing her around you, I know that you're the one that she was obsessed with. She's dangerous. Don't hang out with her. And Haruka's like, okay. And he leaves. And as he's walking away, we see that Kisaki was hiding in the bushes, spying on them the entire time. So she heard this entire conversation. And the next day, Haruka goes up to Kisaki, says, hey, can you meet me on the roof? I want to talk to you. There's something I I got to talk to you about in private. And so Kisaki goes and meets up with him. And you're thinking, oh, Haruka's going to take Rinko's advice. He's going to say, like, hey, I don't want to be near you or anything like that. Nope. Instead, the first thing he says is, Kisaki, I have feelings for you. Will you go out with me? So yeah, he immediately decides, I'm going to date this girl because she's crazy. She scares the crap out of me. And because she scares me, she gets my heart racing and my adrenaline pumping. Like, she's the closest thing that I have to feeling that rush that I had when I was a little kid. So, yeah, he decides, I'm going to date this crazy yandere that I know is a crazy psychotic yandere. And as we go along in future chapters, we really start seeing how crazy obsessed she is. And just the things that she goes through to get what she wants, which is Haruka. And I mean, it's nuts. Like, she wants to date Haruka. She wanted to date Haruka since he's, quote unquote, saved her from Rinko's abuse. To the point where she stalks him. She finds out where he lives. She finds out who his mom is, where his mom works. Purposely goes and starts running into his mom and bumping into her and befriending the mom. That way, when Haruka introduces Kisaki to the mom already knows who she is and is like, oh, this is a great girl. You should totally be friends with her and date her and stuff. She does all these things where she's just constantly doing crazy, stalkerish, obsessive, psychotic things to get closer to Haruka. And the thing is that Haruka knows. He's not like a naive, stupid protagonist. He knows the crazy stuff she's doing. Like, there's one moment where Rinko calls Haruka and they're talking about Kisaki. And one of the things she says is, what made you decide to date Kisaki? Like, what are your feelings for her? Haruka starts naming off the things. And Rinko's like, oh, I gotta go. And she hangs up. And then we cut to like a shot where we see Rinko scared out of her mind because Kisaki is in her bedroom right next to her listening to this conversation. And basically Kisaki forced Rinko to call Haruka and ask why he wanted to date Kisaki. But the thing is that Haruka knows. He figures this out. Like, he figures out that the way that Rinko is acting during the conversation, that Kisaki is there. And so he gives the answers that he knows Kisaki wants. When he later introduces Kisaki to his mom, and his mom already knows who Kisaki is, and how, like, oh, we end up bumping into each other at the groceries and we just became friends, Haruka immediately knows, oh, she purposely sought out my mom and did this. So he's not an idiot. Like, he knows she's crazy, and he knows that, like, all the crazy things that she's doing to get closer to him. So it's this really, like, unique dynamic where he knows how psychotic she is, but he's going to date her anyways because of the fact that she is psychotic. Because of that, it gives him, like, it scares the crap out of him. It gets his heart racing, gives him goosebumps, as the title says. It gets his adrenaline pumping. It captures that same feeling that he had when he was a small kid. But I love the dynamic of the fact that he actually knows all this stuff. He knows every crazy psychotic plan that she's doing. It's just great because a lot of times you get stuff like this where, like, the protagonist, especially like in rom-coms when it comes to manga. Well, I don't want to say rom-com because this isn't a romantic comedy. It's a psychological romantic thriller. But usually in, like, romance stories when it comes to manga, the main character, like, if it's a guy, he's usually very naive towards the other girl's feelings. And like, you have, like, the gags where like the girl's trying to confess and he completely ignores her because he doesn't know that that's what's happening. Like, she might get red in the face and anyone will be like, oh, she's blushing because she's attracted to you. But immediately the male character is like, oh, she must be sick. Your face is heating up. Let me get you to the nursery. Like, I always hated that. Like, I hated the stupid, naive characters. So to have a main character who actually knows, no, this girl's crazy, and all these plans she's trying out to get closer to me that she thinks is secret, I know she's doing it. I know exactly what she's doing. But I'm going to let her do it anyways because it excites me. Like, I love that. It's just like a really cool dynamic. Highly recommend checking it out. It is awesome. Like I said, it's just basically a guy, a smart guy, who goes out of his way to date a crazy, psychotic, obsessive yandere because she's the only thing that can get his adrenaline pumping. And it is amazing. So yeah, there you go. There's My Girlfriend Gives Me Goosebumps. Go check it out. I'll leave a link to the Manga Dex page in the description down below. And then you can just click the chapters and it'll take you to the Manga Plus website where you can read them. But yeah, I highly recommend it. This series has been amazing so far. Like, I love it. I just love the dynamic between the two. I love seeing how crazy Kisaki goes with her obsession. I love how Haruka is like in on all this. He doesn't let her know that he knows what she's doing, but he knows. And it's like, that's cool. Like he's like, yeah, go ahead and do it. Go ahead and do all these crazy things because it just gets me off. But yeah, there you go. I hope you enjoyed. And if you got any recommendations that you think I should check out, feel free to list them down below. I'm always down to listen to recommendations. I hope you enjoyed the video. Hope to see you next time. Take care. Later.